Hi everyone, David Essel here. I am, uh, hold on just a second. I'm here to talk just for a little bit. I'm going to be talking probably on a regular basis about the concept of grief. We're calling this the Grief Journal. This is episode one, and I think the most important thing for me to say right now, as most of you know, my father died today. And my mom died exactly a year ago this month, last January. You have followed my family. You have been so incredible, loving, and supportive. You have been more than anyone could have ever imagined that we might be blessed with as a family. It's been incredible, this journey. And my first statement is a statement of gratitude. If you knew what your comments have meant to my family, if you knew what your likes and your hearts and your prayer hands meant to my family, you would probably look at yourself today as an amazingly incredible human being, if you don't already. I thought in 42 years in the world of counseling that I was very certain about the concept of grieving and what it meant and how to move through it. And I've taken people through grief courses for 30 plus years. And yet, with the passing of my mom, and she did pass a year ago, and she struggled with dementia heavily for multiple years, I started to learn about grief in a different perspective, which is why I want to do this grief journal. I started to look at life from a different perspective. It was very difficult to lose my mom. But one of the things that may sound strange and bizarre that made it a little easier was that she did have dementia. So multiple times a day, you'd be able to find moments of lucidity where my brother Terry and my sister Mary Diane would find the time and grab a phone and FaceTime me so I could connect with my mom. And as the final year of her life came closer to an end, it was shorter and shorter. And then she was gone. My dad, who passed today, I didn't know this would happen. I was very close to my mother. I was close to my dad, but my mom and I were inseparable. And my brother and sister had great relationships. I didn't really create a great relationship with my mom until my late 20s, early 30s. I was a very difficult child, and I finally did come out of that. I did a lot of work on myself to realize I had a huge role in the dysfunction as a teenager. And then our relationship with my mom just turned into absolute pure love. And I've spoken so much about her. With my father, though, I was really shocked. Because he was mentally here, I really took his passing today incredibly hard. And it was very different than my mom's. It was only a few days ago that Mia and I were FaceTiming with my dad, and he had just come back from the hospital, and he was exhausted, but he found a couple moments that we could connect. And at that point, I felt really good, and then he slipped really fast. And the difference with my dad, I think the pain that was so much deeper was that we had just talked to him, and I didn't think there was a need, or I thought even if we, came home in a few days that we would be fine. But we were shocked when we found out that wasn't the case, that he was going to go much quicker than imagined. So I want to talk a little bit about the grief concept and some of the things that I've learned and what I'm going to be teaching. I'm going to be teaching grief very differently. If we can move from sadness and loss to gratitude and then eventually unconditional love, what we're going to find is that grief and the grieving process might be one of the most powerful forms of love ever created on this earth. And I would never have said this a year ago. I wouldn't have had the knowledge. I wouldn't have gone through what I've gone through with both my mom and dad. For those of you who had a decent connection with your mom and dad, we've had so many comments of other people that have lost their mom and dad in 1 year, just like I did. And it's incredibly painful. I mean, losing one is really tough, right? Losing two is very, very difficult. But I want you to think about this. In the process of grieving, to scream, to cry, to be enraged, everything like this, sadness, loss, uncontrollable grieving, in the beginning is perfectly fine. Actually, I recommend it. I recommend that you go all out. If you scream into a pillow or scream through your pen on paper how unfair it is, or whatever you're feeling, and I want you to know this, there is no emotional response in the grief process that's wrong, that's off. It is all divinely, perfectly given to us. We wouldn't be given rage and anger and sadness and tears if there wasn't a purpose for it. Mia has seen in the last 5 days a side of me that she has never seen, a side that grief overwhelmed me, a side that was very difficult. I could not understand what was happening to me. I couldn't understand how my dad's passing was so much more difficult than my mom's. And my mom was my greatest cheerleader. My dad was too, but my mom and I just had something special. And I really thought that my dad's passing would be difficult, but I had no idea it would be as difficult as it was. So if you're in the process of grieving, or if you find yourself in a couple months, or maybe even if you've never grieved before, this is a time to let it out. Rage, anger, sadness, loss. Knowing that you will not see that person again in physical form. But as we move forward through these episodes that I'm going to be sharing, we're going to move towards forgiveness. We're going to move towards gratitude for that person. We're going to move towards and eventually feel this incredible unconditional love that we may never have felt before. There's a place in grieving that is so incredibly powerful. It can be life-changing if we're open to it. A lot of people get stuck, and I understand why. It's really hard to grieve. It's really hard to be us. I will tell you that I was able to hold my father after he passed, to hug him, to kiss him. I screamed how sad I was. And we're talking just a few hours ago. I'm not really quite sure how I can keep it together right now, other than the fact that I was able to tell him everything in the world, how much I respect him. I saw my father in the last 4 years go through hell, physically, operation after operation, procedure after painful procedure. This poor man went through hell. And at the end of every procedure, every hospital stay, every nurse at the house, he would look at them and say thank you, regardless of how painful the procedure was. My brother Terry Essel is the absolute hero in my mind, in my eyes. My sister Mary Diane Skimaker, an absolute hero. Both of them were able to sit with mom and dad as they went through these stages of dying. And after they passed, neither of them backed away from the emotion and the feeling. And because they're so strong and because they did so great, the healing process for them will probably be a little shorter. Because we live in Florida and my mom and dad died in central New York, I wasn't here for everything that my brother and sister experienced. We were on FaceTime with my dad, oh my God, every week, sometimes multiple times a week. And he fell in love with Mia, which was the greatest thing for our family, to see him embrace someone with so much love. He put so much love into her, and she returned every ounce of it. And as I'm holding my father today, after he had passed, and screaming how much he meant to me, and telling him how powerful he was. And I need to tell you this, I had never known my father to be that strong. My father is German. He was an accountant. He was always kind. He was always gentle. I never perceived him to be strong. And in my grieving process, I was able to see over the last 4 years something I hadn't seen in 62 years before that. The power that my father brought to this world. The grace that he left this world with. And as importantly, how he looked at everyone equally. It didn't matter if it was an aide emptying the trash in his hospital bed in his house, or a doctor, or a priest, or whatever. He treated everyone equally. Probably one of the most powerful men that I've ever met. And I'm proud to call him my father. As I held him and cried so hard, I asked him to forgive me for anything I might have done over the last 66 years that he may not have felt good about or proud of. I have no idea if there's anything that he didn't feel good about or proud of, but it was one of those things I had to get out. I also dedicated the rest of my life today as I screamed and cried, holding my father who was dead at this moment, telling him I'm dedicating the rest of my life to you and Mom, to share the messages that you shared with me and everyone else. And you know, on Facebook, some of the most beautiful messages, and Mia has told me this millions of times, was over the last 15 years, I had fallen so in love with my parents that I posted them all the time. It didn't matter if they were sick and dying or if they were happy. I wanted the world to see what I was blessed with. I understand not everyone has this type of relationship with their parents. And I'm sorry if you didn't. I'm sorry if you were abused. I'm sorry if you were abandoned. I'm sorry if you were neglected. If you can find a way to forgive, I know it's really hard. It might be something to consider. And if you choose not to, that will be your choice. And I would never alter your choice. But the grieving process is never linear. We will dance from outrageous sadness to the bowels of hell. And then we'll come back up with a thought of gratitude, maybe a smile, and a half an hour later we're back in the bowels of tears. And we can't understand what's going on. There's times today that I have been so numb after my experience with my father that I can't find where I put keys and gloves and anything. My mind, even to this point, in sharing this message with you, can be so scattered, and that's part of the grieving process. The emotions can be so overwhelming. I will go back down into the bowels of sadness. I'll go back down into those tears, and I will not back away. And I want you to have that same strength. And there's no limit to the tears. Like, it's not like that you're all of a sudden saying, okay, that's enough. It's been 2 months or 3 months or 4 months of tears. I got to get out of this. I don't know what the answer might be for you. But as I continue this journey with you, sharing the experiences, maybe you'll find a timeline that works for you. With my mother, it was about 10 months of barely being able to talk during radio and TV interviews without tears coming down my face. And then they slowly started to fade. And actually, I've done so many interviews about my mom. And last week, they came back for some reason after so many interviews where my tears were gone. There was a softness to my voice. There was a change when I talked about my mom, and my face would light up on camera. And then for some reason, I went back into that depth of sadness. And I will do that, and I'll bounce in and out. And that's one of the reasons that I'm doing these videos. I want you to know that it's okay. And if it takes you 8 months or 10 months or 12 months, as long as you know that there's more stages to go through, you're fine. The end result, I believe, is possible for all of us. It's called the secret of grief. And in the secret of grief, we find something at the end. We may just find the deepest form of love that you could ever register. this deepest form of unconditional love that you never maybe even knew that you were capable of. I'm not a fan of the terms unconditional love. I think they're overused, quite frankly. In one of my books, I talk about the love scale. And in scale number 10, the highest form of love available is unconditional love. And in my book, I write about how I've seen it with dogs that I've had and other people who have dogs who love dogs. We see unconditional love. But rarely do I ever see it with adults. I saw it with my mom and dad. In their dying years, I saw my dad for 2 years. As he was in hospice dying, my mom was in hospice dying. I saw unconditional love as my mom would go into what's called shadowland in dementia, where an anger burst would come out. And she might say things like, "I don't know who you are," to my father. They were married for 71 years. "Get out of my house." And my father, with his cancers and his surgeries and everything else, would just hold her hand while she laid in a hospital bed, in her bedroom. Unconditional love is possible. But I want to mention this. For myself, I think unconditional love hit me with my mom and her passing. As I start to reflect back in gratitude on everything she did with a child who was literally a pain in her ass for so many years, she never gave up. Neither did my father. I'm starting to see as I age and as I lose my parents that I was so blessed with something I barely believe in, unconditional love. The end result, I think, of the grieving process can be this for everyone. But there's going to be stages we go through that we might not think it's possible. There's going to be stages we go through that maybe we're angry at God for taking our loved one. Maybe we're angry at ourselves for regrets of things we never got to say or do with them. There's all kinds of emotions you go through. With my father, I did apologize. I didn't get a chance to apologize while he was alive because he was in a comatose state. But after he passed, I did apologize. I did tell him everything in the world. I told him I will carry on his legacy of compassion, of faith. Two of the most important things I'm learning in life. I have a lot to learn, everyone. I have a real lot to learn. And I'm open to it. I will carry on my dad and mom's legacy in so many different ways. I believe there's going to be a massive shift in my career. I believe that there's going to be a massive shift in how I live. Mia and I have already talked about making some major changes. And they're going to happen. And there will be different of opinions with some of these episodes. People may not understand them, and that's okay. There will be other people that totally get it, and that's okay. I want to say this, though. As you go through the bowels of hell, losing someone that you loved so deeply, please understand, as you continue to process your pain, on the other side will be sadness. And then on the other side of that, I hope you find gratitude. And on the other side of that, I hope you'll experience unconditional love. Most of you know I'm not a Pollyanna guy. I don't believe in positive thinking changing the world. I believe positive thinking is beautiful, but it's our actions that change the world. My actions now in this video, whether it's viewed by one person or 10 million, is to try to help people understand the grieving process at a level I never understood it. I'm still learning. I'm going to share everything I learn. I am not holding back. My brother Terry was there as I was screaming into my dad's ears, my arms wrapped around him, my face up against his. Now, a lot of people may not be able to do that. A lot of people may not want to hold someone who's passed on and tell them how much they meant to you and apologize for anything that you've done and tell them that you're going to carry on their legacy. This is not for everyone, and I'm not here to judge. If you're someone that could never do that, that's okay. I happen to find in the presence of my father an unbelievable connection. Tears running down my face, over his cheeks, over his ears. He looked beautiful after he had passed. Mia, who had never experienced anything close to this, found that he was speaking to her yesterday. And today, when she experienced my dad, already passed, she experienced unconditional love. I'm going to end this here, but I want you to know there's more coming. I also want you to know this. If you struggle with grief, if you struggle with someone that passed 10 years ago that maybe you're still angry with, or someone that passed 30 years ago and you can't stop crying when you see their photo, that there's another way. Don't ever take away your sadness or your anger or your rage. Don't let that go until you're ready. Write about it. Release it. Don't let it get stuck in the cells of your body. I wanted so badly to ask for my father's forgiveness, and he gave it to me. For what, I'm still not sure. But if there was anything I ever did that offended him, I know I'm forgiven. I know God has forgiven me as well. I want you to find the peace. Tomorrow is going to be a different day. There will be a wake, and that'll bring on a different set of emotions, and I don't know how I'll handle it. All I do know is that I'm not running. I'm going to walk into it. And as difficult as it's going to be, which I know it will be, I'll continue walking into it because I want you, anyone who is struggling with this, to have one more person in your corner, maybe explaining it in a way that'll make it a little bit more acceptable. Still difficult as hell, but maybe a little bit more acceptable. On Tuesday morning is the funeral. I have no idea how I'm going to react to that. I'm going to speak about my dad at the funeral. I don't know how I'm going to react to that. But all I know is this. The same thing I told my brother and Mia. I will do everything to celebrate my mother and father for the rest of my life. I will do everything to push the agenda of faith and compassion that they taught me. Or I should say this. They tried to teach me. It took me a few more years than they probably were expecting for me to embrace the beauty that they are and all that they taught me. I hope you'll find that too. I'm not looking for peace right away. If it comes, that's great. It may be a while. As I mentioned earlier, it took a minimal of 10 months before I could come to any type of closure with my mom, where I wasn't hysterically crying at the drop of a hat. My father will probably be very similar. But the end result is what I want for you. A feeling of peace, a feeling of love, and a feeling of gratitude. And I believe they're all on the other side of anger and loss and sadness and rage. On the other side, waiting for you, is an experience that I pray you'll receive. I also pray that you'll do the work to receive it. It's really hard to grieve on our own if we don't know how to do it. Find a professional. Reach out. If you want to talk to me, email me through the website, talkdavid.com. But find someone to work with. Don't try to do the grieving stuff on your own. It's very difficult, and we need guidelines. I hope some of these words today will become guidelines. I hope some of these words today will touch you. I hope some of these words today will be taken positively, because if they are, and if they can be, then you will join me, and we'll get into the secret life of grief together. I love you. My family loves you. I hope you know what I said earlier. Every comment means the world to a family in grief. Every heart that you put on someone's post, every prayer hands, you may not know what it means. It means the world to us. I have printed out and sent to my brother and sister, probably over the last 2 years, 3,000 or 4,000 prayer comments from you, from all of our loved ones on Facebook. Some people I don't even know who they are. And my brother and sister would sit and read them to my mother and father. And after my mom passed, they would read them to my dad. And I can tell you this: you lifted my parents. You lifted my brother Terry. You lifted my sister Mary Diane. You have lifted me. You have lifted Mia. I love social media for this reason only. I'm not a fan of social media. I love it for this: the unconditional love that's in this world that so few people ever see, because all they see in social media are things where people are arguing over the ridiculousness in this world. But there is one place in my heart for social media, and especially Facebook, and that is this: prayers, gratitude, and photos of puppy dogs. You know, you guys have lifted my dad up to the day he passed. My brother and my sister would read them to him. May you be blessed on your journey. If I can help, let me know. I'm David Essel. I'll be back soon.